Welcome to Between Code and Conscience. Today we're starting at the modern beginning of computational artificial intelligence back in 1950, a time when computers filled entire rooms, and one mathematician asked a question that would shape the future of technology.
That mathematician was Alan Turing. He asked, can machines think? It's a deceptively simple question, really.
Seems simple, yeah.
But his answer changed the way we talk about AI. Instead of focusing on, what's inside the machine, he suggested we test whether machines can imitate human behavior well enough to fool us.
And that became the Turing Test.
That idea became known as the Turing Test, exactly.
Before we get to the test itself, let's maybe get to know Turing a bit better. Who was he, and why do his ideas still matter so much today?
Alan Turing was a British mathematician, logician, and a really crucial wartime code breaker.
Enigma.
He helped crack the Enigma code during World War II, which saved countless lives. After the war, he became one of the pioneers of computer science. His 1950 paper didn't just speculate about machines. It laid out a practical way, a method, to ask whether machines could ever be considered intelligent.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Turing started with that question. Can machines think? Simple on the surface.
Right.
But he quickly realized the words machine and think were tricky to define. What was his core concern there?
Well, what's fascinating is that Turing worried if we tried to define machine and think based on just, common usage.
How people normally talk about them.
Exactly. We'd end up needing something like a public opinion poll, a Gallup poll, he even mentioned, to figure out what people meant.
Which sounds absurd for a scientific question.
He found it absurd, yeah, because it would make the answers subjective based on popular opinion, not objective inquiry. So he sought a more objective and, as he put it, relatively unambiguous way to get at the essence of the question.
So he essentially sidestepped the whole philosophical swamp of defining thinking.
Pretty much.
And instead proposed an operational, sort of measurable definition of intelligence based on behavior. That's a huge pivot, isn't it?
It really was a major shift.
So given that innovative approach, how did he then translate this complex philosophical question into something concrete, something testable?
Right. He proposed this new related problem he called the imitation game.
The imitation game.
Okay, imagine three people. A man, a woman, and an interrogator. They're all in separate rooms.
Isolated.
Completely. And they communicate only through typed messages. So no voices, no handwriting, no appearance clues.
Ah, okay. Level playing field, intellectually speakable.
Precisely. The interrogator's goal is to figure out which participant is the man and which is the woman, just from the typed conversation.
And the man's role.
The man tries to trick the interrogator into making the wrong identification. Maybe he pretends to be the woman.
Okay. And the woman?
The woman tries to help the interrogator. She gives truthful answers, trying to convince the interrogator she is, in fact, the woman.
It's almost like a futuristic text-based parlor game, isn't it?
Kind of, yeah.
But with incredibly high stakes for how we understand intelligence. So, okay, the game involves humans. How did Turing then make the leap to applying this to machines?
So Turing adapted the game. He asked, what will happen when a machine takes the part of the man participant A in this game?
Replacing one human participant.
Exactly. The core question then became, will the interrogator be fooled as often when trying to distinguish a human from a machine as they are when distinguishing a man from a woman in the original game?
I see. So it's a comparison of fooling rates.
Right. And this approach cleverly avoids defining thinking directly. It focuses purely on observable behavior and communication.
Performance.
Performance, yes. It draws a clear line between physical stuff like having skin or needing sleep and purely intellectual capabilities because the interrogator can't see or touch anyone. It's all about the typed conversation.
He gives some really compelling examples in the paper, doesn't he? To illustrate how a machine might actually respond. What kind of human-like interactions did he imagine?
Yeah, he envisioned machines responding in surprisingly nuanced human-like ways, not just spitting out facts.
Right.
For example, if asked to write a sonnet, say, about the fourth bridge,
A creative task.
a very creative task, the machine might respond, count me out on this one, I never could write poetry.
That's evasive. Human-like evasion.
Exactly. It reflects a kind of believable imperfection, not just a cold, perfect computation saying, error, task not possible.
Or the math problem example.
Right, the arithmetic. Add 34957 to 70764 instead of answering instantly, which would be a giveaway.
To machine-like.
To machine-like. It might pause for, say, 30 seconds and then give the correct answer, 105621. It mimics a human's thinking process, or at least the time it takes. These examples show the machine could mimic human responses, even deliberate imperfections, to seem more human.
This sounds so much like our interactions with AI today. What are some, really profound modern parallels here?
Oh, absolutely. Think of today's chatbots or voice assistants like Siri or Alexa.
Yeah, use them all the time.
They're constantly trying to imitate human conversation, human behavior to fulfill our requests, right? They don't have bodies or brains like ours.
Nope.
But their ability to process language, understand context, generate human-like text, that's a direct descendant of Turing's core idea of intellectual imitation.
So it's like today's AI, especially these large language models.
Exactly. LLMs.
They implicitly use Turing's definition.
Yeah.
If it talks like it's intelligent, we treat it as intelligent.
Precisely. It's a pragmatic approach that still really defines the field. We judge by the output, the behavior.
It's clear Turing had this incredibly deep vision for AI. But he didn't just propose the test and, leave it at that. He was remarkably forward-thinking with his own predictions.
He was.
And maybe more importantly, he was ready to face the doubters head-on. What did he actually foresee for the future of these thinking machines?
He made a pretty specific prediction. He believed that in about 50 years from 1950, so by the year 2000, computers with a storage capacity of about 10 to the power of 9, so a billion bits, which seemed huge then.
Astronomical then, yeah.
Would be so good at the imitation game that an average interrogator would have no more than a 70% chance of correctly identifying the machine after just 5 minutes of questioning.
Only a 70% chance of being right. So 30% chance of being fooled.
Right. He felt that the original question, can machines think, would eventually become, in his words, too meaningless to deserve discussion.
Because we just accept it.
Because general educated opinion would have shifted to accept machines as capable of something we'd functionally call thinking.
Wow. But obviously not everyone would agree, not back then, not even now.
Definitely not.
And Turing knew that. He wasn't naive. He systematically tackled nearly a dozen potential objections in the paper. It's almost like he was preemptively debating critics.
He really was anticipating the counter-arguments. It's quite remarkable.
What were some of the biggest ones he considered?
Well, one major one was the theological objection.
The soul argument.
Yes. The argument that thinking is a function of an immortal soul given by God, and only humans have souls.
How did he counter that?
Turing argued that this view actually restricts God's omnipotence. Why couldn't God choose to give a soul to a machine if he wanted to?
Like giving one to an elephant, as he mentioned.
Exactly. Especially if the machine had a sufficiently complex structure, a brain. He compared it to past arguments, like those against Copernicus's model of the solar system, deeply held beliefs that eventually yielded to new understanding.
Okay, so that's the theological angle.
Yeah.
But I can imagine some people might just fear the whole idea, the sort of gut reaction.
Oh, absolutely. He called this the heads in the sand objection.
Aptly named.
It describes the tendency to just hope and believe machines couldn't think, because the consequences would be, well, too dreadful.
Threatening to human uniqueness.
Turing saw it precisely as a desire to maintain human superiority, especially for intellectuals who value thinking so highly. He felt it didn't need a logical refutation so much as consolation.
Consolation.
Yeah, suggesting the fear came from a reluctance to face a potential shift in how we see ourselves, our unique place in the universe. It really feels like he was tapping into anxieties we still have today, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, beyond those, there were more technical or philosophical challenges, right? Like the mathematical objection. That sounds quite serious.
Yes, that one's more technical. It pointed to inherent limitations in what he called discrete state machines, basically, digital computers.
What we use now.
Right. The objection drew on ideas like Gödel's incompleteness theorems, which basically suggest that any formal system complex enough for arithmetic will have true statements that can't be proven within that system.
So there are things the system just can't know or prove.
Kind of. So critics argued a machine, being such a system, must have limits. It might fail to answer certain questions or give wrong answers, proving it's not truly intelligent like a human.
And Turing's response.
His response was clever. He said, yes, machines have limitations, but crucially, it hasn't been proven that the human intellect doesn't have similar limitations.
Turn it back around.
Exactly. And he pointed out that humans give wrong answers all the time. Our feeling of superiority when a machine makes a mistake, he argued, is often just a petty triumph over one particular machine, not over the potential of all machines.
Okay, that's a strong counter. What about the idea that machines don't actually feel anything? The argument from consciousness. This is a huge one still today.
A very big one, famously championed by Professor Jefferson at the time. He argued a machine couldn't write a sonnet or compose music because it doesn't feel emotions. It could only manage it through a chance fall of symbols.
So, no inner life, no real creativity.
Right. No pleasure, no grief. Turing's counter was that this line of reasoning leads straight to solipsism, the idea that you can only be certain that you think and feel.
You can't know for sure about anyone else.
Exactly. So in practice, we operate on a polite convention that everyone thinks. He then suggested if a machine could successfully undergo a kind of oral exam, a viva voce, about a sonnet it supposedly wrote.
Defending its choices.
Yes, explaining why it chose this word instead of that one, why summer's day worked better than winter's day. It would be very hard to dismiss those reasoned responses as just easy contrivances. It would look like understanding, even if we can't prove the feeling inside.
So, again, it comes back to the outward appearance. The performance of intelligence, not proving the inner experience.
Precisely.
Beyond those major philosophical points, he also lists several other sort of disabilities people claim machines would always have.
Yes, a whole list. People claim machines could never be kind, resourceful, beautiful, friendly, have initiative, have a sense of humor, tell right from wrong, make mistakes.
Fall in love, enjoy strawberries and cream.
Right. Or learn from experience, use words properly, be the subject of its own thought, have the diversity of behavior of a man, or do something really new. A long list.
Quite the list. How did he tackle those?
He argued many of these were based on what he called scientific induction from looking at the very simple machines available then, basically judging the future potential by the limitations of the present.
Like judging computers based on calculators.
Exactly. He linked the potential for diversity of behavior directly to storage capacity, more memory, more complex behavior, and for the idea that machines cannot make mistakes.
Which seems counterintuitive. Machines crash all the time.
Well, he cleverly flipped it. He suggested a machine designed to win the imitation game would deliberately introduce errors, especially in things like arithmetic, precisely to seem more human.
To fool the interrogator.
Yes.
Yeah.
He distinguished between errors of functioning, like a hardware fault, and errors of conclusion, like deliberately typing a false statement or a wrong calculation. He saw no reason a machine couldn't be programmed to make the latter.
And what about being the subject of its own thought?
He argued that was already happening in a way. If a machine is working on solving an equation, isn't that equation its subject matter? He even suggested machines could help write their own programs or predict changes in their own structure, actively engaging with their own processes.
And then there's the famous Lady Lovelace's objection, that machines can only do what we tell them to do. They can't originate anything. This still comes up constantly with AI creativity.
Absolutely. Lady Lovelace, working with Charles Babbage on his early analytical engine, stated, "It has no pretensions to originate anything. It can do whatever we know how to order it to perform. No true creativity."
A powerful claim. Turing's take.
He disagreed, suggesting this view often comes from our own limited perspective. We might not be able to foresee all the consequences of the instructions we give a complex machine.
So the output can still surprise us.
Exactly. He confessed that machines frequently surprised him because he didn't fully calculate their outputs in advance. He argued that appreciating something as surprising, whether it comes from a human or a machine, requires a creative mental act on our part, the observer. The surprise is real, regardless of the source.
Okay, shifting gears slightly. What about more fundamental differences, like the brain being this, squishy, continuous system versus a digital computer's discrete on-off states? That seems like a real physical difference.
That's the argument from continuity in the nervous system. The idea is that the brain isn't digital. Tiny changes in nerve signals can potentially have big effects. A discrete state machine, like a digital computer, operates in steps, ones and zeros. So how could it truly mimic a continuous system?
Seems like a fair point.
Turing argued that, again, within the context of the imitation game, this difference might not be detectable. The interrogator couldn't tell. A digital computer could provide answers that are the right sort of answer you'd expect from a continuous system.
How?
For instance, if asked for pi, instead of giving trillions of digits instantly, it could give a plausible approximation, maybe even randomly choosing the last few digits within a likely range.
Yeah.
From the interrogator's view, it would be indistinguishable.
Okay, so simulate the behavior of continuity, even if the underlying mechanism is discrete. And what about the argument that human behavior is just too messy, too informal to ever be captured by a set of rules?
Right, the argument from informality of behavior. This claims it's impossible to create a complete set of rules describing everything a human might do in every possible situation.
Like, what do you do if a traffic light shows both red and green? There's no rule for that.
Exactly. So the argument goes, if we can't list all the rules for human behavior, humans aren't machines, because machines operate on rules.
Makes intuitive sense.
But Turing felt this confused two types of rules. Rules of conduct, like stop at red lights, things we consciously follow, and laws of behavior, the underlying physical or biological laws that govern how our bodies and brains actually work.
Ah, a different level of description.
Yes. He agreed we don't have a complete set of conscious rules of conduct for every situation. But he stressed we don't know enough to say there aren't complete underlying laws of behavior governing us. And crucially, he also pointed out that even a simple program on a digital computer can produce behavior so complex that an observer can't easily predict it or deduce the underlying rules. So machines aren't necessarily limited to simple, predictable rule following either.
Okay, one last objection, and this one is, well, unexpected. The argument from extrasensory perception, or ESP.
Yes. This one seems to come out of left field, but Turing took it quite seriously.
Why?
He believed the statistical evidence for things like telepathy was strong enough to consider. If ESP is real, then an interrogator who has telepathy could potentially read the thoughts of the human participant.
And instantly know who is human and who is the machine.
Exactly. The machine, presumably having no thoughts to read telepathically, would be exposed. It bypasses the whole typed conversation.
So how did he solve that in the game?
His proposed solution was simple, if a bit sci-fi. Put the participants in a telepathy-proof room.
Shielding them.
Yes, to ensure the test only measures intellectual capabilities, communication, not potential psychic abilities. He even playfully speculated about psychokinesis mind over matter, potentially influencing the machine's random number generator, making it guess right too often.
Wow, he really thought through the edge cases.
He did. It shows how focused he was on isolating the intellectual imitation aspect.
So, after meticulously addressing all these objections, what was Turing's ultimate vision for actually creating these intelligent machines? How did he think we should go about building them?
Well, his approach was deeply practical and maybe surprising. He thought the main challenge wasn't hardware, but programming.
The software.
The software. And he famously suggested that instead of trying to program a complex adult mind from scratch,
Which seems incredibly daunting.
right, we should maybe focus on simulating a child's mind. He described it like a notebook with little mechanism and lots of blank sheets.
A learning system from the ground up.
Exactly. This child machine would then be subjected to an appropriate course of education, learning through rewards and punishments, feedback.
Like raising a child.
Sort of, yes. Using unemotional channels of communication, like symbolic language, he saw parallels with biological evolution. The machine's initial structure is like hereditary material. The changes during learning are like mutations. He hoped this process of educating a machine could be much faster than slow natural selection.
And randomness played a role.
He thought so. He suggested including a random element in learning machines, not just for exploring solutions to problems, but also maybe to naturally introduce something akin to human fallibility, making them seem less rigid, more real.
It's truly striking how many of these foundational ideas from 1950 still echo so strongly today.
Isn't it?
What are some of the most direct lines we can draw from Turing's paper to what we're seeing now with large language models, AI ethics debates, all of it?
Oh, the connections are everywhere. Turing's paper really laid the philosophical groundwork for how we even approach AI development and evaluation. His core decision, remember, to focus on observable behavior rather than trying to define internal thinking.
The imitation game approach.
That's exactly the principle behind how we evaluate systems like ChatGPT today. We interact with them, we judge their output.
We see if they can hold a coherent conversation, answer questions plausibly.
Right. These LLMs don't claim to think or feel in a human way. Their creators are usually careful about that. But their ability to engage in complex, coherent dialogue makes them appear intelligent. They are, in effect, playing a sophisticated version of the imitation game all the time.
And the objections he raised.
They're still the core of our debates. Consciousness, creativity, bias, mistakes, the black box problem, understanding why an AI gives a certain answer. Turing's methodical dismantling of those early objections gives us a framework for navigating today's ethical and regulatory discussions.
Like the heads in the sand objection.
That resonates powerfully with current anxieties about AI's potential impact on jobs, society, even our sense of self. His arguments suggest we should examine if our fears stem from the actual risks or from a resistance to the idea of non-human intelligence challenging our perceived uniqueness.
That's a powerful connection.
Yeah.
But, some critics today argue that even impressive AIs are still just stochastic parrots.
Right, sophisticated pattern matchers?
Exactly. Just predicting the next word based on vast amounts of text without any real understanding. How would Turing likely respond to that kind of skepticism today? And what of the limitations of the Turing test itself? Is it still the gold standard?
Turing would likely point straight back to his original premise. If the behavior, the output, is indistinguishable from a human's in the context of a game, does the internal mechanism, whether it's understanding or stochastic parroting, actually matter for the purpose of the test?
The test is about imitation, period.
Exactly. The imitation game gave us the first practical behavioral benchmark. It drove decades of research by shifting focus from abstract philosophy to testable performance. That's its huge influence.
But it does have limitations, right?
Oh, definitely. And that's part of the ongoing debate. We know machines can potentially game the test, like Turing himself suggested, by faking emotions or imperfections without possessing genuine understanding or consciousness.
So passing the test doesn't prove consciousness.
No. And critics also rightly point out it heavily favors linguistic intelligence. What about other forms of intelligence, spatial, emotional, creative, in ways beyond language that machines might develop? The test might miss those.
So it's a valuable starting point, hugely influential, but maybe not the final word on machine intelligence.
I think that's a fair assessment. It raises the question, is intelligence solely about convincing conversation, or is there a broader spectrum?
So ramping this up, from Turing's original imitation game, laid out so clearly back then, to the really complex AI laws and ethical frameworks we're grappling with today. It really does seem like we're still wrestling with the very same fundamental questions he posed over 70 years ago. He gave us this foundational roadmap, didn't he?
He absolutely did. Turing fundamentally reshaped how we even ask the question, can machines think? He moved us towards this practical behavioral assessment. But the deeper implications, what does machine intelligence mean for human identity, for creativity, for consciousness itself? Those continue to evolve with every single technological leap.
Yeah.
The question today isn't just if machines can imitate us convincingly, but maybe more profoundly, what does that imitation actually tell us about ourselves and how we define intelligence in the first place?
A truly profound thought to leave us with there. Thank you for this amazing deep dive into Alan Turing's really groundbreaking work.
My pleasure. It's fascinating stuff.
It certainly is. We'll be back with more thought-provoking AI-related content.